Today I want to talk about a very special game. Buckshot Roulette is a title that likely resonates with many gamers. While it may not boast the same type of hype as Helldivers 2, with its exceptional gameplay and recent controversies, it has garnered an impressive 18,000 reviews on Steam, the majority of which are overwhelmingly positive. It's a rarity to see something like this gain attention amidst the vast expanses of the internet. Recognizable figures such as Jacksepticeye, Markiplier, Ludwig, Gangrums, and Pyrocynical have all delved into the topic with one or more videos. Its broad appeal likely stems from its nostalgic PS1 style graphic and the gritty, rustic aesthetic reminiscent of franchises like Silent Hill. Though I appreciate these particular aspects of the game, they aren't the primary reasons why I invested in it, not once, but twice. Once on Mike Klubnika's itch.io page and again on Steam. I've even purchased the original soundtrack on vinyl from Turtle Pal's tapes. And the hint lies in this detail alone, revealing why this game has struck such a deep chord within me. The music of Buckshot Roulette is something that prompts you to write paragraphs, only to delete them and start over again because sometimes in life, you can't put into words how special something is to you. Let me give you some of my personal background story. Towards the end of 2022, techno music became a significant part of my life thanks to my friend Kevin. He invited me to Austin for the Seismic Dance event, a 2-day festival where I had an unforgettable experience. Techno music gradually became a daily ritual for me, particularly during a challenging breakup and while dealing with inner struggles. For me, techno provided an outlet for self-expression through dance, a way to stay active, and a boost in confidence. Even now, I believe it's something that still holds value for me. That's why stumbling upon the soundtrack during someone's playthrough felt like a blessing. I immediately found Mike Klubnika's SoundCloud and started tuning in. I bought the soundtrack and the game on December 31st, nearing 4 p.m. and just headbanged through the new year. Finally, just a few weeks ago, I decided to livestream the game so I could continue my project of making a video on it. Anyway, that's enough banter. Let's get on with the show. Buckshot Roulette offers a chilling twist on the infamous game of Russian roulette, transforming it into a tabletop horror experience. Instead of the traditional revolver, players face off with a 12-gauge pump-action shotgun, and adding an extra layer of intensity and strategy to the deadly game of chance. This game is set in the eerie ambience of an underground nightclub. The game unfolds amidst the pulsating beats of a long-forgotten drum machine. Players confront the sinister AI dealer offering you a spoil of up to $70,000 when winning the game. The metal railings tremble with anticipation as players navigate the treacherous game, their fate hanging in the balance with each ominous click of the shotgun's chamber. There are 2 versions of the game out right now. Nothing crazy like Pokemon versions, but it's all based on where you decide to purchase it. You can either buy Buckshot Roulette through the Mike Klubnika's itch.io page or on Steam. If you are planning on purchasing the game, let me tell you right now that it's better to buy the Steam version. The Steam version is pretty much the itch.io version, but with a few additions that make the game a bit more interesting. In the latest update, as of May 7, 2024, Double or Nothing mode introduces new items offering both players and the dealer additional tools to enhance the thrill. You can show off your gambling prowess on the global stage with the introduction of leaderboards. Wow, so this is, holy shit. Plus, enjoy expanded language support for a truly immersive experience. But beware, the dealer's AI in Double or Nothing is now more ruthless than ever. Aside from this, you can also enjoy things such as Steam trading cards and other community items if you're into that sort of thing. Now, I noticed some comments on the itch.io side, expressing concerns about the need for updates to the game. While I understand the sentiment, it's worth noting that the game is priced at only $3. Personally, I paid significantly more for games that ultimately didn't meet my expectations. For the purpose of this discussion, we'll focus on the Steam version, widely regarded as the definitive edition of the game. As the protagonist, you find yourself in the bathroom area of the rundown underground nightclub. As you leave the restroom, kicking the door open, you encounter a man smoking a cigarette, casually observing the presumed dancers below. However, a visit to the game's Steam page reveals that the club is home to only the protagonist, the dealer, and the smoking man. Originally intended for itch.io release, the Smoking Man was meant to accompany the player into the room, taking a seat to observe the game. With each player death, he would return to his seat after the player's revival, only to depart as the final showdown approached. Upon entering the room, the player is welcomed by the dealer, whose first words are a simple request. Player receives a waiver titled General Release of Liability, attached to a machine that resembles an interesting looking typewriter, allowing up to 6 characters for input. While the player has the freedom to type anything, excluding the names Dealer and God, this small detail will be addressed later in the video. They are presented with the predetermined numbers of rounds. Round 1 begins with the players being shown the exact numbers of blank and live rounds in the shotgun. Typically, the first round starts with 1 live round and 2 blanks. Once all rounds are depleted, the game resets, and it's the player's turn once more. Personally, I like to jot down this information to a sticky note to help my aggressive lack of memory. The dealer loads the shotgun, and the player is given the option to either shoot themselves or the dealer. If the player chooses to shoot themselves and hits a blank, they earn a follow-up turn. However, if they shoot a live round and hit themselves, they lose a health point, and it becomes the dealer's turn to shoot. Round 2 introduces a more dynamic gameplay experience by allowing players to utilize items. At the start of the round, players can select 2 items from the available options. Let's first delve into what I call vanilla items before we move on to the DON items. These are a total of 5 vanilla items that players can acquire in the original game mode, each offering unique advantages. Here's the breakdown of each one. This item holds significant importance in the game. When used, beer allows players to rack the shotgun, enabling them to eject the shell inside without firing it. If only 1 shell remains in the shotgun, ejecting it prompts the dealer to reload, starting a new round. The pack of 6 provides a straightforward benefit. Using it grants players 1 charge. However, if the charges are already full, further usage doesn't increase them. It's essential to note that in the 3rd round, charges become faded, rendering the cigarette packages ineffective, as any damage incurred becomes lethal. Among the most useful items, the handsaw allows players to cut down a portion of the shotgun's barrel, doubling the charges needed for the next shot. This proves invaluable for strategic play, requiring a live shell for its effect to take place. After firing, the shotgun barrel regrows, resetting for subsequent rounds. With the magnifying glass, players can discern the type of shell inside the shotgun, distinguishing between live and empty. This information is valuable, enabling players to anticipate their moves without any foul, increasing the effectiveness of their shots. The handcuffs provide both offensive and defensive utility, resulting in a skip turn. Notably, subsequent usage is prohibited, and if the handcuffed player fires a blank, their opponent's turn is skipped again. Before I start explaining the next items, I want to explain how to access the Double or Nothing expansion. To access Double or Nothing mode, beat the dealer in 3 rounds of the regular game. Alright, cool, so now we're gonna double down. Upon success, pills appear in the bathroom during a new game setup. Take them to activate Double or Nothing mode. Fun fact, the pills that you take are Quaaludes. Quaaludes, or methaqualone, were a sedative hypnotic drug prescribed for insomnia and anxiety in the 1960s and 1970s. Known for inducing relaxation and euphoria, they became popular recreationally. Due to the abuse potential and harmful side effects, they were restricted and classified as a controlled substance. The production of Quaaludes ended sometime in the mid-1980s. Anyways, in this mode, rules tweak slightly. No doctor revivals upon depletion. Additionally, item and charge allocations become random per round. For new items, adrenaline, burner phone, expired medicine, and the inverter are introduced. Victory prompts a Double or Nothing prompt. Opt yes to double earnings and continue, or no to secure your current winnings. In this expansion, 4 new items have been introduced. While it may not seem like a significant expansion, it truly enhances the rounds. So let's get into it. A riskier alternative to cigarettes, expired medicine offers a potential of 2 additional charges for the defibrillator, but it also comes with a risk of losing a charge. The inverter is a strategic item that switches the current distribution of blank and live rounds in the chamber. For example, if the shotgun initially contains 2 blanks and 4 live rounds, the inverter will rearrange them to 4 blanks and 2 live rounds. The burner phone provides valuable information by revealing whether a specific round in the chamber is a blank or a live. Notably, the burner phone is unaffected by the effects of the inverter. The adrenaline syringe presents one of the most potent effects amongst available items. It enables the players to steal a specific item from the dealer's side of the table, with the caveat that it must be used immediately. Players cannot steal another adrenaline syringe. By removing an option from the dealer's side, players can craft new strategies based on the dealer's remaining items. Before we get into round 3, I have to mention this instance that happens when you pick out a new item in the second section of round 2. Just take a look. Life. Hell yeah, another beer. Cool, right on. And general release of liability. Hold on, what was this? Remember the release form you initially signed? It was a pristine sheet of paper, unlike the one you pluck out from the box. At the bottom, in bold letters, it bears the signature of a player named God. You as a player, place in the liability form back in the box, and we proceed with the game. While I do appreciate a bit of intriguing lore, this aspect of the game has morphed into cringy content from numerous gaming channels.
Now there's another thing that I kinda want to try out, which is God, which is God. God either, okay. Oh wait, so you're allowed to do a 3-letter name, but you just cannot do God and you cannot do DEALER. Interesting.
I understand the fascination, but every time someone reacts to the God liability form, it's like a broken record playing in my head. And this image comes to mind. However, I promise there's more to explore about this detail in the next round. Apologies if that sounds kinda harsh. Up to this point, whether you perish after either round 1 or 2, the Smoky Man, also known as the Doctor, would revive you through defibrillators and blood transfusion. However, in round 3, this safety net is entirely removed. Players begin the round with 6 life points. If a party possesses 2 or fewer charges, they enter sudden death mode. The player and the dealer lose their lives permanently to never walk this earth again. Interestingly, something omitted from the game was the original concept of the machine that cuts the wires when reaching your last 2 life points. It was initially envisioned as a guillotine. However, the design was altered as a guillotine seems too simplistic and predictable for the developers. There are said to be 2 endings to the game, 3 if you consider getting revived by the Smoky Man, but I personally wouldn't count that one. Congratulations! If you successfully survive all 3 rounds of the game, you'll witness this sequence. He's gonna lose a point. Man, I'm really on the blind right now. I totally forgot. Wait, did we win? Did I win? Very specific. Hell yeah. The screen fades to black and you find yourself driving to the next destination with the briefcase full of money on the passenger seat of your car. Nice. And I guess you get to keep the shotgun as a parting gift too. You'll see all your stats displayed on the top left of the screen, indicating the amount of money won out of the potential $70,000. This is considered to be the good ending of the game, but I must say, it's by far the most interesting of the 2. The original ending of the game was intended to conclude with an extended cutscene. After the player successfully secures the briefcase from the club, they hastily make their escape, jumping into their car, and as they settle into their seat, the camera pans to the reflection of the rearview mirror. There, the shocking reveal awaits. Only a blown-off head with a fragment of the spine protruding remains, before the screen cuts abruptly to black. This ending, however, was ultimately scrapped primarily due to time constraints. If you were to die in round 3, you would see this sequence. The original intended bad ending of the game diverged significantly from the final version. Initially, the concept of heaven in the game was depicted as a serene and tranquil place, far removed from the visceral nature of the rest of the game. In this envisioned ending, the player would find themselves interacting with the figure seated on the booth next to the Golden Gate, surrounded by billowing clouds. This figure would then offer the player a choice to either try again or pass through the gates. However, during the development process, this entire sequence felt disjointed and out of place with the game's overall tone and lore. Consequently, it was decided to replace it with an ending that carried more shock value and better aligned with the subtle lore established throughout the game. What's particularly intriguing, for a lack of a better term, is that when you lose all your life points, you're supposed to die permanently. But instead, you're met with the sight of the upset dealer's red glowing eyes as he hands you the briefcase filled with all the money you earned. But I believe I have a rather solid explanation for that. Let's revisit the god liability form. Upon awakening from death, one would anticipate entering a more breathtaking realm. However, what lies before us seems to be a diluted version of what heaven once embodied. The likely reason? The individual who signed the waiver found in the item box is, in fact, the true god. This revelation sparks numerous questions, so let's put it all on the table. I have 5 questions that I'm eager to uncover the answers to, perhaps in a sequel or within a standalone game with more lore of this universe. Regardless, here's my list. What motivated God to enter a nightclub to play a game? Why did God choose to engage in the potential dangerous game with an evil entity? What were the stakes of the game? $70,000 doesn't seem to be a very good prize for a god. There must have been another enticing offer from the dealer for God to consider putting the ownership of heaven on the line. How did God lose the game? I mean, isn't God supposed to be omnipotent and immortal? What does this scenario reveal about the nature of God and the forces at play in the universe? While I may not be able to answer these questions, and I'll explain why later, I have a final thought on why the dealer doesn't meet his final end when he loses in the 3rd round. If indeed God lost heaven to the dealer or whoever he represents, there's a possibility that the dealer now holds sway over the afterlife, granting him immunity from death. Perhaps the dealer of this company went off to challenge God, and I can't help but imagine that God was quite arrogant to accept, likely assuming an effortless victory. But who truly knows? I mean, I'm just having a little bit of fun trying to piece it all together for the sake of this video. Let's talk about the reality of what this game truly means. There's an article I came across online provided by Lev Yakovlev on January 16th, 2024. I'll link this article below somewhere in the description. He interviews Mike Klubnika, and after reading it, I felt it was important to incorporate some of the questions and answers to this video. It's interesting that you mentioned the idea of comfort, because another question I wanted to ask was related to how a player cannot input 2 very specific names in Buckshot Roulette, God and Dealer. Was this by intention, and why? Okay, so the dealer is because I was messing around with the machine and I decided to name myself that. Then I realized that is weird. You can name yourself as a dealer. Shortly before release, I added the thing where during a 2nd round where items are introduced, you could take a general release of liability that was signed by God out of the item box. It made sense that since God had already signed the game, the name was thus taken. A lot of people think this is deep lore, but the names are just taken already. You can be someone who exists within the story, but the video games and deep lore go hand in hand. What do you personally think about doing deep lore in your games? Would you be interested in it or averse? I like lore in video games, and the story is important, but what is funny about Buckshot Roulette is that it has almost no lore. I set out to make a game of Russian roulette with a shotgun, so there was no intended lore, compared to the previous game where there was plenty of it. And what is funny to me is the game I chose to put almost no lore into is now getting wiki pages and videos analyzing the lore, and so I feel I should have added more lore. Related to the idea of having nothing to lose, Buckshot Roulette has multiple endings depending on multiple factors, and in one of them, you see the gates of heaven as you are killed. Is the way of those gates are depicted how you also see the pathway of the afterlife? Well, personally, I don't know what the afterlife is. The gates of heaven look like that because I wanted to shock the player with it. This is where you are now. Good luck. It was a funny detail with the spikes poking out, which isn't something you naturally expect. It's heaven as if it's the middle of Estonia winter. I guess it could be that heaven looks like that because God played Buckshot Roulette and died. So it might be what is left of heaven now since he is no longer there. It could be a good way to look at it. All interpretations are valid. Yeah, yes. Exactly. And there are a lot of conversations to be had on this. Do the intentions of the player or designer for the game's lore matter more? Do you welcome player interpretations? Generally, yeah, I am up for interpretation. In my games, there is lore, but it's so detailed that the larger picture is more or less unexplained. I always welcome interpretation. I find them interesting to read, and I always go, I wish I could tell them about their interpretation, but I don't want them to conflict with theirs, because I think they are just as valid as mine when the game features such minimal lore especially. To the people making the wikis and actively trying to dig for lore in Buckshot Roulette, is there anything specific you want to say to them? No, I think I have... No, I don't think I have anything specific. I would say keep doing what you're doing. It's been mentioned that Buckshot Roulette was initially part of a larger project, originally named Shotgun Roulette. The title was a nod to Swifter's Call of Duty series.
Wait,
a childhood favorite of Mike's. In this Envision project, players would navigate various locations within a desolate town, completing objectives. One such objective involved defeating an underground arcade owner in a game of Shotgun Roulette. The ticket won from this game would contribute to obtaining a grand prize, a crucial piece of hardware for a mysterious device. Whether this ambitious horror game will ever see the light of day will remain uncertain. When all is said and done, in terms of questions and lore, Buckshot Roulette appears to be a merely fun little game with additions to a minor amount of lore to add to the shock value. Yet even so, Mike Klubnika has managed to incorporate enough intriguing details to potentially expand upon this world in future projects. At least, I sure do hope so. Regardless, the community is already hard at work attempting to uncover the non-existent story and construct a world worth getting into. Buckshot Roulette has laid a promising foundation for Mike Klubnika. I can only anticipate more ambitious projects in the future. Anyway, I'll leave you with that. It's been a bit of a bittersweet video. Usually, I like to dive deep into the topics I cover, and I believe I still managed to provide valuable information from solid sources. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I recently lost my job and am exploring unconventional ways to make ends meet, so I can dedicate more time and energy to making videos for you. Please share the video and hit all those fancy buttons below to support the channel and let the spirit of the algorithm bless us once more. Much love, bruvs. When life gets boring, come back to us and experience something awful.